How do you feel Meghan has changed the beauty industry as far as being a royal?
I feel like what she represents is now. And I feel like globally, she resonates on so many levels, not only because of how she looks, but who she is.
I want to talk to you about the different industries over the past few weeks. We've seen tech, entertainment make changes in their organizations to end discrimination against Blacks. What do you think needs to change in the fashion and beauty industry when it comes to race?
I think the biggest thing is that people have to be open to hiring. And that means that if you're in a decision-making position and you control the purse strings, make sure that whoever you're interviewing, you have a diverse cast of people, whether that's from photographers, stylists, editors, hair, makeup, everything. You know, when you look around wherever you spend your money and however you're spending your money, don't you want to spend it with people who really represent your customers and who really represent the real makeup of this country? So I think it has to flow from the top down.
I 100% agree with Veronica. I mean, there's been many times where especially backstage during Fashion Week, there have been artists on my team who don't do women of color just because that's not their primary client. But as an artist, you need to know every skin tone. It's skin. You need to understand that if you're calling yourself a makeup artist, you need to know how to do makeup. And that's many skin tones. So there's a trickle down effect through all of this, but it really starts with education and really understanding what you need to do to really excel yourself in those crafts.
Veronica, you are a trailblazer for African-American women in the modeling industry. You were the first African-American woman to gain a major cosmetics contract in 1992. Can we talk about your experience with racism when it comes to the fashion and modeling industry?
I mean, I faced a lot of discrimination. I faced a lot of exclusionary practices. I mean, thank God that I was born in 1965, which is the year that Black people became full citizens. So a lot of actually racist laws that would have legally prevented me from getting hired or excelling were off the books. But what we're facing now is something that's sort of more insidious and a little bit more difficult, a lot more difficult because it's discrimination, right? So I had to conquer old attitudes, and I was told lots of times, I was told right when I started working, there's no covers for Black girls, there's no advertising for Black girls, there's no cosmetic contracts for Black girls. And I had great photographers who tried to book me for all kinds of ads, and sometimes it would work, but lots of times what would come back was they don't want someone Black in their ads, they don't want people of color, the client doesn't want people of color in their ads. The client told me that they don't want their product to become a status symbol for people of color. So what I was dealing with was, you know, fighting old attitudes, people who had been raised with old discriminatory attitudes. And I was lucky enough, because things only change when everyone works together. I was lucky enough to have people who were either raised with, educated by, or who admired artists and business people of all walks of life, of all backgrounds, so that we had people working together, people who were familiar enough with people of color in every level of their lives in order to want to include them in every aspect of their business. I think there needs to be an end to tokenism, because it's not good business. It doesn't reflect the market. When you go in the room and you're the only one, right? When you're the only one, then it's really hard to figure out, like, how are you going to help other people come through? How are you going to mentor other people? And when you're the only one in the room, it's really difficult to get advice and guidance from someone who's done it before you.
And that weight on your shoulder, you know, of being the only one in the room, it's not something easy to carry. I definitely can attest to that.
I personally have probably experienced racism on set twice. And as an Asian American with a very white Caucasian name, they either thought I was the manicurist or Daniel Martin's assistant.
Wow.
So Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. I feel like there's a lot of Asians, a lot of people of color in fashion. I just don't think they're in leadership roles or even brand, going into owning brands. When you get to that point in one's career, to be able to, create your own line eventually, there's not a lot of brands of color.
Right.
So I was really excited to see the whole movement of stand up or shut up, that challenge, to come forward in the beauty industry to really, share your numbers and share who are working behind these scenes in these brands.
I think that, a lot of the brands are coming forward and saying, okay, now we know better, we can do better. And that's commendable. I think movements never work without organization and without a plan. So I think you're going to see going forward, there's great organizations like 25 Black Women in Beauty who are really striking out to kind of help people organize and create a comprehensive plan about how we can go forward, mentor people, and make this change sustainable rather than a one-off. Lindsay People-Wagner over at Teen Vogue, because she's also thinking about creating an index that will allow people to, because one of the biggest things is that most people, we get our job because a friend recommends us. Most of my jobs I've gotten are because another woman of color recommended me. So it would be nice if there was an index for people to be able to look for people who they wouldn't normally encounter, but would be happy to hire if they only knew where to find them.
We hear so many horror stories from models and actresses about how they come to set, their hair either gets burnt out or someone doesn't have the right foundation for their skin. How can all makeup artists make sure that they are properly skilled to service any client?
They need to be honest with themselves and whoever they're working with. Whether it's your agent that's representing you, your agent knows to, hey, you're working with someone who has textured hair. Are you familiar with that texture? Be honest. The last thing you want to do is show up on set and you look bad because you can't perform your job. At the end of the day, we're providing a service. If you're not skilled at your service, there's a challenge.
Very true.
And it's just so black and white to me. No pun intended. But like, you either know how to do your job or you don't know how to do your job. Either way, it's your job.
Yeah. How often do you work next to Black makeup artists?
Oh gosh, I have so many Black makeup artist friends.
Oh, well, that's great. Yeah, that's great. I just didn't know, when you're on set or doing these big events, is it common?
Yeah, when I was assisting Pat McGrath, there was always a lot of, it was either Japanese or people of color on her team. Mm-hmm. There's also, what I don't see a lot in our industry are women of color who are stylists. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of Black men who are stylists, but not a lot of Black women who are stylists.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea, but I know so many incredibly dressed, stylish Black women. There's just a handful. Yeah. Maybe one, my friend Shiona. She's the only one I really know.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I know Zarina Akers.
Mm-hmm. Right, mm-hmm. Or June Ambrose.
But more they go on the entertainment side rather than the high fashion side. And then that goes, back to behind the scenes.
Mm. I'm super excited to see what Samira does at Harpers Bazaar. Just working with her at Elle, she's incredible and so kind and she knows her stuff. So that was huge.
I've known Samira since we were in our 20s, so long time. And there's no one more passionate and open to different ideas than Samira is. And I think that she's going to surprise us with everything that she does in terms of how unique and inclusive her work is going to be.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that. Veronica, I kind of want to go back and talk about your career a little bit. Were there any moments where you felt like you had to dim your Blackness in order to get opportunities?
I think that happens a lot. I think, we all grow up switching code. We all know that, you speak you speak one way at your job, you act a certain way at your job because it's standard and
Right.
it makes other people feel more comfortable. But I mean, think about it. Like, I always tell people, imagine if every time you went to work, right, you're blonde, you have straight hair. If in order to be taken seriously at your job, you had to figure out how to get your hair into an afro.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's great. Because we deal with that all the time.
Right.
Veronica, after you became the face for Revlon in 1992, did you see a change in how you were treated in the industry? What changed as far as opportunities?
Well, once you get a cosmetics contract, that's like the sugar plum of modeling. That's, your gold medal, your Oscar, your Emmy. It's kind of like having an EGOT. It allows you to get paid better. It gives you a lot of prestige and a lot more respect. But the biggest change I saw is that after I got my contract, I would open a magazine and there were all kinds of faces. Then Tyra got a contract. Then Latifah got a contract. Then, go down the road, Ellen DeGeneres has a contract, right? So for my girls growing up, they know a world where it's different ages, sizes, races, orientation, and preference as the ultimate symbols of beauty.
Daniel, I want to talk about a big moment in your career as well. You worked with your friend Meghan Markle for the royal wedding. Can you talk about how that changed your world, and how do you feel Meghan has changed the beauty industry as far as being a royal?
If anything, it gave my name and my work a larger platform. To that, though, I feel like what she represents is now. She is contemporary, and people felt she resonated on so many levels, because here is someone who we all know, we all have a friend that looks like her, who's marrying into this establishment that was very one way, one perspective. And I feel like globally, she resonates on so many levels, not only because of how she looks, but who she is. And I think for me to associate myself with her, there's a responsibility. There's also, I'm very fortunate that we're authentic friends. So I feel like, I have to do and be as good because we're all in this together. Right. I mean, she gave me this incredible gift, and now it's my responsibility to share that.
I saw how you did an interview and you mentioned how a mother saw the way that you did her makeup, how it was natural. It just showed her natural beauty as a woman of color. And that really inspired her daughter, that she could accept herself and she didn't have to do so much to be beautiful.
I mean, it's just interesting because what I did with her on her wedding day was something that I've always done throughout the years with my clients. Mm-hmm. So just to understand that perspective of how it made other people feel, because my goal that day was just to make sure my friend felt good on her wedding day.
Right.
It wasn't about the spectacle of who she was marrying, the wedding. It was just, I wanted her to feel as beautiful as she did, like any bride on their wedding day. To read those comments that, it enabled all these young girls to really understand the power of makeup and how it made you feel or made them feel was really interesting, because I had never thought of it like that.
Recently online, people have been taking on the Vogue challenge. Black photographers, models, makeup artists.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Basically showing that, hey, we can do it too. Do you think that will have any effect on the industry?
I mean, I think it has to have an effect on the industry. When I think of all the years that I've worked in fashion, which is going on 35 years now, I can count on less than one hand the number of Black photographers that I've worked with. Wow. And that always struck me as really strange. Like, you can't tell me in 35 years that there's no one with the talent and the reach who can do this job. And there's no one who's ever come forward to be part of this world, to do this job. So
Yeah.
it'll be really interesting, you know, when we start to see different points of view. And, you know, the same with female photographers. It's very unusual to work with a woman photographer.
That made me think of Anna Wintour's recent apology to her employees at Vogue. Did you get a chance to see that?
Yeah,
I did.
That was interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people were upset at this particular statement. She said, quote, "I know Vogue has not found enough ways to elevate and give space to Black editors, writers, photographers, designers, and other creators." That rubbed people the wrong way because Anna is the head person in charge at Vogue. And it's like there's obvious opportunities or obvious people that are ready for these opportunities. What were your thoughts on her statement?
I mean, I think certainly more needs to be done. There's a pretty big disparity, but at the same time, Anna put me in American Vogue for the first time. Anna hired Andre Leon Talley, and before him, there was no one like that in the entire fashion industry. She also hired Edward Einfeld, who's the editor-in-chief of British Vogue for the first time in its history. So I think, like a lot of people, you know, we all wish we could do more, or we all wish we had done more looking back, you know. And also, if you think about it, she also hired Elaine Welteroth, and she also hired L. Peoples Wagner. So at the same time, you know, it's not that she's done nothing. I don't think she's guilty of that. We have to be fair, but there's certainly a lot more to do, and she's open to it.
I mean, yeah, if she put out this statement, I just hope that, you know, we can hold her accountable to change moving forward. Because to be honest, we all know that publishing is diminishing. So let's be progressive and let's stand up and say, hey, if you are saying that you recognize the change, I want to see what you're going to do to make the change.
What is the biggest lesson that the fashion and beauty industries have taught you about how they see race?
Yeah, it's really interesting because in many ways I feel like fashion sees race as either an aside, an obstacle, or a fetish.
Yeah. What about you, Daniel?
I think moving forward, we have to recognize, we have to lift others up. We have to we all need to embrace the change. I feel like instead of going back to Veronica's comment about tokenism, I remember in the 90s when hip hop culture was the trend for years. And then it just kind of disappeared. And it's like, you know, that was real. That was real life. Let's recognize what's happening in real life now. There's balancing out that, you know, of creating that fantasy, but there's, you know, let's honor the reality.